11:34 on TSN 690. It is Game Night OT. I'm your host, Matthew Ross. We're here till top of the hour. My show, Game Points, until 1 a.m. Mr. Mokan is here in studio. Jimmy G on the board. Stefano Micella helping us out. TSN Matthew on Twitter.com if you want to tweet at us. Our next guest is a former minor league baseball player in the Atlanta Braves organization. He's a current partner at the law firm Miller Thompson, based out in the West Coast, and he came up with a very, very unique and creative way of potentially funding a new downtown Montreal baseball stadium that has people talking here in this province. We are very pleased to welcome to the program Dominic Therrien. Hey, Dominic, how are you?
Not bad, not bad. What about you, Matt?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Good to have you on this program and talk a little bit about what you've come up with. But before we get to that, as I mentioned, you played in the Braves organization. How long and where did you get to, and how long ago was it?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. From 91 to 94, played until A-ball. I was a third base, and my last team was a team you know very well, I assume, the Durham Bulls. So, it was quite a long time ago, and the third baseman in front of me was an unknown player at the time called Chipper Jones. So needless to say that I have a better chance of becoming a lawyer than a third baseman with the Atlanta Braves at the time.
Now, obviously, you're a passionate baseball guy. You came up with essentially a white paper, an approach to funding a downtown baseball stadium. The white paper, I did tweet it to TSN Matthew. You can also follow Dominic, by the way, at D-O and Therrien on Twitter.com, or you can go to MillerThompson.com as well to check it out there. Tell us about this proposal.
Yeah, the idea is quite simple, really. As you may know, we have many immigration programs in Quebec, including one called the Immigrant Investor Program. This program has been around for a long, long time. And basically, in order to qualify for immigration, an immigrant has to meet various requirements, including one where he has to make an important financial contribution to the Quebec government. Under the current rules right now, an immigrant has to make a 5-year interest-free loan of $800,000 to the Quebec government. So obviously it's for very wealthy people, but this program is very, very popular, Matt. Last year, the Quebec government opened that program for only 2 weeks, saying that it would only accept 1,700 applications, and they received more than 5,300. In one word, you have 3,600 millionaires that were not even able to apply because of that quota. So my idea is quite simple. Because we have a very strong demand that we cannot satisfy on one hand, on the other hand, we need financing to build a stadium, why can't we use a new investor program? It would be a 3-year, a temporary investor program, very similar to what we have now, except the financial contribution we would ask from every immigrant would be a non-refundable contribution of $275,000 specifically for building the stadium. So 3 years, 620 immigrants a year, total of a little bit more than 1,800. You do the math, so you have a total of more than $500 million, and that's more than enough to build a ballpark in Montreal.
It's really a no-brainer when you think about it just from the 10,000-foot view. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of different aspects to it. Your specialty or where you practice obviously is in immigration, so you have a bit of the background there. But also, what I found really interesting was your reference of the not model, but something similar in the sports world in terms of structures where they applied this to some extent.
Absolutely. There are some precedents. Tampa Bay tried it, or, at least looked at it in baseball. Oakland also looked at it, but the immigration programs in the U.S. are a bit more complicated. But you have one place where it worked. In Brooklyn, the arena they have for the Brooklyn Nets was built partly with money coming from an immigration investor program. So there is a precedent there. And what I'm saying here is that why can't we do the same? Here, I think the advantage of that approach would be we would require $0 from the city of Montreal, nothing from the taxpayers of Quebec, So at the end of the day, we would have a brand new stadium, a Major League Baseball ballpark with foreign capital, 100% financed with foreign capital, nothing from the Quebec government.
In terms of the offshoots and the benefits of having a stadium here from your research, it's something that you think is desperately needed here in the city.
Quite frankly, I think we can all agree that without a new stadium, the dream of bringing baseball back to Montreal will remain a dream. I think we all agree that although the Olympic Stadium is a decent stadium, everyone agrees on we need a new stadium for this to work. So to me, that's the starting point. We can talk about all we want about a team and how it would be great, but without a new stadium, this project will not work.
Chatting with Dominic Therrien, a partner with Miller Thompson, and we're talking obviously about potentially finding a new downtown Montreal baseball stadium. And one of the other things that I've always talked about here on this program is this is a festival town, it's an event town, and it's not just for baseball. If you don't want to put another sports team there like the Alouettes or something like that because of field condition concerns, there are so many other things that could come there. Concerts. No concerts play at the Olympic Stadium anymore. Nobody likes the acoustics there, but you can have concerts there. How about just for laughs, having the top comedians do shows there? So a lot of different opportunities, perhaps, to have different events there.
Yeah, you're probably right. My paper obviously only discusses the financing, but you're probably right on this. And sometimes we forget that Montreal used to be a great baseball town. If you look before 1994, we had great crowds in Montreal, and I'm convinced it is a great baseball city. And, we could do it. If we have a nice stadium, if we have the right project in place, I really think that Montreal could have a Major League Baseball team.
Dom, looking at your article even more in depth here, obviously you mentioned about the financial aspect of it and how it could be a win-win for everyone involved here. How important is location for this stadium, and also what to build around it, whether it's hotels, condos, or shopping centers as they do at Staples Center with the LA Live across the street from Staples?
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting. But to be honest with you, I really focused on the financing. If you look, I'm sure you read the feasibility study by Ernst & Young published in December, and I think they did a great job at identifying, I think it's 5 different sites. But I think it's quite clear for everyone involved that it needs to be close to the downtown area. But you're right, you see great projects across the United States where they were able, and Matt was mentioning it earlier with Brooklyn, they were able to have a project where the stadium was only part of a much bigger project with casinos and hotels and whatnot. So I'm sure it's something that people will have to consider at one point, but quite frankly, my paper was really focusing on the financing aspect of the problem.
In terms of the next steps here, obviously you're a baseball guy. You wanted to get something out there and let other people explore it, ask you some questions about it, and maybe run with it. What are you hoping to do now? What are your next steps? Is it trying to get this in the hands of people like Denis Coderre or somebody from the provincial Liberals now that they're in power? Or what do you hope happens next here?
Yeah, I think quite a bit of people are talking about it right now. I want to make sure the dust settles a little bit and see how people will react to the idea. But at the end of the day, you will have to have, decision makers looking at this and say, yes, we can make this happen. Because as you know, and I'm quite clear on this in the paper, it's not an easy ride here. We need political will behind this. Without someone in government saying, yes, we can make this happen, it will never work. Because obviously we need some tweaking to the current regulations. So my goal at this point is to have decision makers to look at this and have a significant political will to make this happen.
Do you think that there's going to be pushback here? Do you sense that this is something people would be open to? Is it something that you think will find a lot of obstacles and hurdles, or do you think that this could come to fruition?
What I like about this strategy, Matt, to be honest with you, is that you're going to have people on the left that could find things in there that they will like. At the end of the day, we're not asking a single dollar from taxpayers. So obviously, this is good. You'll have a lot of people on the right that will look at this and agree with this because obviously bringing a team back and, building a $500 million stadium will have great benefits for the economy of Montreal and Quebec. So I think there's a lot of things there that can satisfy a lot of people across the political spectrum. Having said that, and I've heard the argument before, a lot of people will say, well, if we do this for baseball, why don't we use this immigrant investor money for a hospital, for instance, or a school or whatnot? And it's a fair comment. But at the end of the day, I think bringing Major League Baseball back to Montreal is the project of a generation. It could be an incredible project where you're going to have a lot of people, all from Quebec, working on the stadium. So that will be great for employment and everything else. So although I understand, the concern where people say we can invest this and other things, at the same time, you'll admit that we'll probably not see that kind of opportunity in the near future. So I think we have a window here. There is momentum right now in Montreal. Let's see if we can take the ball and run with it.
And then final question for you here is the plan is laid out. It's very intelligently put together here. Let's say it happens. Let's say the government of Quebec puts this thing in motion in a few years and everything turns out great. Is the idea then that the stadium belongs to the government of Quebec because it's they that put this initiative in place?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, Matt. The money that will be used will come from foreign capital, 100% from immigrant investors. But the stadium will belong to all Quebecers. It will belong to the Quebec government. So at the end of the day, these immigrants will provide the investment. It will not be their stadium. That money will only qualify them for immigration. But at the end of the day, the stadium will belong to the government of Quebec, and they will have to enter into a lease with a potential team. So, again, you take money from wealthy immigrant investors and you build a stadium with that money that will belong to all Quebecers. I think it's a great example of, redistribution of wealth.
He is Dominic Therrien from Miller Thompson. You can check him out on twitter.com/DOTherrien, Therrien. And obviously millerthompson.com is the website as well. Thank you so much for your time and for your passion. And I'm sure many Montrealers listening right now are very, very thankful as well that you've come forward with this great idea.
All right. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you. There you go. That's Dominic Therrien, the man behind the very creative and exciting proposal to put together something for a downtown baseball stadium. Mo, initial thoughts?
Optimism definitely is ascending, but a lot of questions, right?
Yep.
Who's going to own the stadium?
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like the government.
Right.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, where do you build it? And does things come with it? Condos, shopping center, entertainment center. A lot of questions that have to come up here, but it has to be brought up to the right people who are going to look at this, whether it's Mr. Coderre, the mayor of Montreal, or Premier Couillard, now the new premier of Quebec.
And just an interesting tidbit to throw in here. The mayor of Montreal, big baseball fan, also was involved on a federal level in immigration. So things that make you go,